All right, the next phase in your turn is the reposition maneuvers phase. So you're just going to be moving your units around territory you already control, trying to reposition for future turns and future enemy attacks. So the first part of this phase is going to be rail movement. So you're going to be loading units onto trains and moving them by rail. So this is my current unit for a train. Very simple. I will be getting some train units soon, but that's what I'm working with right now. So this Tier 1 artillery and this Tier 2 brigade are going to hop on this train. This is a rail station here, so they can hop on this train because there's a rail station here. Units can only enter a train if there is a rail station in their territory. Trains can only move along territories with railway and can only, again, pick up or drop off units at a train station. And so this train can go over here to Jefferson, go over here to Little Rock, and I can drop off these units here. It cannot drop them off here in Jefferson because there's not a train station. So he's going to go over here to Little Rock, and these guys are going to go with him. So that is rail movement. All right, now you just have your normal reposition maneuvering of just moving units around to prepare for possible enemy attacks or your plans for future attacks. So for example, you could move these brigades up here to better prepare for a possible attack of Nashville. In fact, you could even move this artillery in with it. And you can move this guy over here from Vicksburg to Donelson, things like that. You're just kind of moving units around, reshuffling things. Same with your Navy. We can bring this ship up here in case the Union get any funny ideas. Or even better, they probably wouldn't win that battle anyway, so they'll actually both just pull out over here. And, you know, this fleet could come out of port and link up with them as well. Things like that. All right, that concludes your turn. So after doing all of those different phases, your turn would be over. So then you go to the next player. So like I said, say it was the Eastern Confederacy's turn, and now it's over. So you just continue in turn order and go to Eastern Union and continue from there. So after everyone takes their turn and a round ends, there's one more phase before the round is actually technically considered over. It's the in-between rounds phase. It's technically when the round is over. Again, it's between the rounds. So the first thing you're going to do on this is just clean up an organization. If you have a whole lot of clutter and units and things and it's hard to see stuff, try and clean it up, make it look better so everything is seeable and recognizable. Make sure everyone knows where units are placed and so there's no confusion. After that, you're all going to deploy your units that you built the last turn. During the whole production phase, yeah, all those units, they get played now. And this is another one of those things where by, written rules, you all deploy all at the same time. But if, to save on time, make the game go a little quicker, speed things up a bit. But if you want to keep things a little bit more organized and things like that, you can go in turn order. Again, it's something to be discussed between all of the players before the game begins. You want to make sure you get all these little things like that locked down, and so everyone is on the same page on what you're going to do on that front. So the Western Confederacy just, the whole round ended, and it's the Western Confederacy's time to deploy their units. And so in the production phase, they are building a Tier 2 brigade, a Tier 1 cavalry, a Tier 1 artillery. They're going to get a Tier 1 gunboat. They're digging a trench, and they also get 2 free militia. Again, I'll go into kind of unit costs and things like that, how they all work in the units section of this whole series. But I will just go ahead and say basically how militia work is you get 1 free militia for every 5 manpower you collect. So when you collect your resources at the beginning, say, you know, well, the Western Confederacy, for example, they get 12 manpower per turn. So if you get a free militia for every 5, you get 2 free militia, and so it's rounded down. It's 5 rounded down. So again, they get 2 free militia. So let's go ahead and place those units. So militia are a special type of unit, at least in their placement and movement and things like that. Only 1 militia can be placed in a specific territory. So you can't put 2 militia in the same territory in one go. So like you can't put 2 militia in Vicksburg. You can't just do that. You can put 1 there. You can't put 2 though. A maximum of 3 militia can occupy a state at a time. So, like I said, you can't place both of them, like say down here in Jackson. You can place 1. There's 3 militia there now, so you can't put any more. Well, say there was already 3 militia here. You can't put 1 here, because maximum of 3. And that's another thing about militia, is they don't need like a factory or a camp or anything like that to be placed. They can just be placed, they can just pop up anywhere, any territory you own, that you have controlled since the start of your turn. Also, militia cannot be placed in territories you've captured. So, like they conquered Maryland, you know, in the combat that we did earlier. You cannot put a militia here, even if you started your turn with this. You cannot put militia here. It's technically occupied territory. The civilians aren't going to want to fight for you. You're invading them. You know, you're occupying them. It's not their home. So it has to be in territories that you've had since the start of your turn and was original territory. All right, and so we can put a militia. I don't know. We'll just put 1 in Vicksburg, and we'll put 1 here in Nashville to protect here. So when it comes to their movement, I'll get into stuff like that later on when we get to the unit stuff. So now let's place our brigade or our cavalry, both. They're very similar in their placement. Actually, they're literally equal in their placement. So cavalry, raiders, and brigades all have to be placed in a territory containing an army camp. There's one here in Montgomery, Alabama. There's also one over here in San Antonio, Texas. So each army camp can deploy up to 3 units. So if they wanted to, they could put both their cavalry and their brigade here. And if they had a 3rd unit to build, they could build 1 there. Let's just say you had built a ton of units and you placed 3 down here, you placed 3 over in Montgomery, Alabama, and you still have units to place. Well, each state capital, you can place 1 unit in there without an army camp. So Nashville is a state capital here, so you could put 1 of your units here in Nashville. So you could put this brigade up here. Boom. Things like that. That is how that works. But just for now, we're going to put them over here in San Antonio. Now, when it comes to artillery and trains, they have to be placed directly at a military factory. So there's one here in Austin. We can put them there. There's also one in Montgomery, Alabama. We can put over there, but we're going to put them in Austin. Now for the Navy, each naval port can build 1 ship, and so we got to put the ship down. So we're gonna put him here at this port. So I know this is like a coastal marker, but I'm using it to signify that they're docked. And so when you place them, they don't get placed out in the water. They, spawn in at the dock. Now, if we wanted to spawn the ship here, we can't, because each dock can only have a maximum of 3 ships docked at it, and so it has to be placed here. Okay, lastly, we have a trench to place. So facilities there's pretty much no restriction to where you put facilities. And again, this is more of a defensive piece. The only restriction on trenches is you cannot place them in a territory that contains a fort. So like we could not put it in Donaldson or Vicksburg because there's already a fort there. You know, why build a trench when you have a fort? So you can't build trenches in territories with forts. Now when it comes to building a fort, you can place a fort in a territory that has a trench, but that removes the trench. Think of it more as an upgrade. So we're just going to put this here, trench, right here. Because let's just say that this tribe joined the Union, and so they're kind of trying to defend here in case the natives decide to attack right there. So the trenches, I'll get into facilities and things like that later for the most part, but I will go ahead and let you know trenches, they don't just like go in a territory like other facilities like railroad or factories. They get placed on the border between a specific territory. So this trench is protecting and giving extra defense from an attack from this territory. So one of the best examples of this is right here in P Ridge. The Union attack from here, the CSA will get a +1 defense. If they attack from here, they don't get a defense because they're bypassing that trench. Now, if you had attacks coming from both territories, that gets a little bit more complicated. Basically, they still get their defense regardless. So you want to make sure all your army is coming in from the territory that is not there. You know, there's not a trench there. So you want to try and go around it. If even one unit comes in from here and all the rest there, they still get their +1 because a unit is coming from here. So that is something to keep in mind with trenches.